What's up, everybody? How are ya? Welcome, rock stars, to another Tuesday edition of Rocket Live. I am so excited. I have such an awesome guest today, Corchado from Sisters in Service, the host of Sisters in Service podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you today. So excited to have you on. We feels like 1,000 years ago that we booked this date to get you on the show. And I'm pumped to have you on. I'm pumped to get into the conversation with you. So thanks for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate the invitation. I love that intro music, man. That's like who is that? Pat Benatar?
It sounds like it, right? It's
Yes.
it was this awesome Jersey band called Champagne Charade. They were probably like mid 2000s. They broke up a bit ago, but the singer Desiree let me use it for my podcast. So I'm super psyched because I think I'm like their biggest fan. So
Nice. It's a good fit. I love it.
Yeah. Keeping the flame alive with the Champagne Charade for sure. So before we get going here, before we dive into the interview with Kat, I want to welcome everybody right now who's watching live. Thank you all so much. And thank you to those who will be watching the replay and listening to the audio version of this later on down the line. Before we really dive in, I want to say thank you so much to our official show sponsor, Coffee with Kerry podcast. And we were just talking about this, Kat. Like you're no stranger. You just had your experience with Coffee with Kerry podcast, right? It's just so much fun.
It's a blast. I had such a good time.
Yeah, it's a complete blast, and I was fortunate enough to be on her first episode with my co-host on the Chris and Amanda show, Amanda Sharp, and we just had a great time. So if you are looking for an awesome podcast that blends interview, game show, total just spontaneity and fun, this is seriously, it is a great podcast to listen to, and you can also watch it as well. I always urge listening to the audio first, which you can listen anywhere you get podcasts, but then you head over to YouTube channel and watch the full episode, because I feel like it's like reading the book and watching the movie. You know, it's got that feel to it. So awesome. So make sure you check out Coffee with Kerry podcast and definitely subscribe to that wherever you get podcasts. And of course, as always, if you are looking to support the show, please feel free to head over to buymeacoffee.com/CVaglia or use the links in the show notes and in this post to connect, because hey, every little bit helps, and we've got some bills to pay around here too. So, you know, while I don't necessarily make any direct money off this show, it definitely helps to pay some of the bills when it comes to some of the other things that's associated with the show. And of course, for those of you that do know or may not know, I am also a business coach as well. So I've created an online community. So if you're looking to stand out, engage your audience, and overall just raise your overall visibility, head over to the Let's Rock group. It's on Mighty Networks. Once again, use the links in this post and in the show notes to join. We'd love to have you over there. Now, with all that shameless self-promotion out of the way, want to get to my guest, my very special guest, Kat Corchado, United States Air Force vet. And you have just absolutely created a really awesome podcast, and you're involved in so many just really cool things. So I want to throw the mic over to you. So why don't you give everybody a little bit of taste of your background, what you're all about, what you're up to, and how you came into all this.
Sure. I came into the world as a military brat. My dad was already in the Air Force, so he did 22 years. We traveled all over the place. We spent a lot of time in Europe and England. I went to high school in Germany. And it's funny because when you're born into that, you think it's normal,
Right.
as a child. But we have people say, "Oh, how horrible. You have to move all the time." And we're like, "Are you kidding me? This is amazing. We're having so much fun." And, then I decided to go into the military. I had no clue. Like, no one goes into the military saying, "I'm doing 20 years." And I ended up doing 20 years because
Wow.
I can't do math. Okay. No, seriously, I went into the military as a single parent and I said, okay, I'm going to, be in long enough to raise my child. And when he goes to college, I'm getting out. And again, I didn't do the math. And when he went to college, I had like 5 years left.
Oh, wow.
And I said, yeah, that's just ridiculous. I'm not getting out now. That's just stupid. So I got out of the military and it wasn't what I had expected.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people I felt like I was that first round draft pick, when everyone's throwing money at you, pick me, Kat, no, pick us. We're over here. We'll give you,
Right.
And I walked out the door. There was no music. There was no balloons. There was nothing, and I fell off the proverbial cliff is what happened. And I thought it was me. And what I found is that a lot of veterans go through this. But again, you feel like you're isolated. And it took me a little while to get my feet on the ground, but, I eventually did. But I kept missing something. I all my growing up was on bases around veterans, around military, and I just missed it. And that's when Woven came in, the Women Veterans Network. And what I didn't know at the time was that it was just brand new. And it was just a round table of women veterans just talking and laughing and having a good time, not having to explain anything to people.
Right.
And that's how I got started with the Women Veterans Network.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really, and I had a chance because, for full disclaimer or disclosure for everybody listening, I mean, I've had the opportunity to talk to Kat several times on, on Clubhouse, which is where we met, which is, I feel like every single week I say that because I'm like, it's just a parade of guests of everybody I've connected with. But it's been great. It's enabled me to be able to meet awesome people like you and then have these cool conversations and, be able to talk about what it is you're up to. So I've heard you talk a lot about Woven and the work that you're doing and how important it is. And for all the things that you were just talking about, that transition from being in the military to then coming back to civilian life. And, and it's not easy for everybody. I mean, depending on where and what you've done and what you've seen and what you've been through, it's different levels for sure. And this is the stuff that I've heard you talk about over and over again. And, and I've heard you have conversations with some of the other vets on Clubhouse and, and everybody's got their different way of dealing with things. And it's definitely something that it's not a one size fits all.
No, it's not. I think that I retired over 21 years ago. And when I got out, people now think, that there's not too many, but there's a lot of support out there. There's a lot of organizations now. It's like drinking from a fire hose. Well, when I got out, it was a desert. There was no water. There were no boats.
Right. Yeah.
There was nothing, And so now when people get out, I always tell them, to start with a little bit, try to pick out the stuff that you think is necessary for you.
Right.
And then go from there. If you try to take it all in at the same time, you're just going to get overwhelmed. And that's what we don't want, is for people to get overwhelmed. And there's lots of help out there now. There's lots of people helping other veterans through that transition process because it sucked for a lot of people. And you would think that after, 20 years, from the time I got out to now, it'd be a piece of cake. And it's not. It's not any better than it was before, which really blows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you make a really great point because you would think that with after all this time, and it's not like we've had servicemen and women coming in and out of the military for years, and you would think that, oh, okay, it would just get better and better. And yes, while there's more access than there was before, it's, as you said, it hasn't gotten really any better. I mean, it's just because there's always going to be a need there for people to help one another.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's a problem is that people have their idea of what they think a veteran looks like. And so women, you always hear
Right.
about women veterans being invisible. And at first you are, because you really don't want to raise your hand and say I'm a veteran. And then, you wear the veteran coat, you've got
Yeah.
it now. But now other people don't see you as a veteran. Other organizations don't see you as a veteran.
Hmm.
And that's frustrating. It's really, before you didn't want to identify, now you're identified, but people don't see you because their concept of what a veteran looks like doesn't match what you look like. And that's really frustrating.
Yeah, I could definitely imagine that because, like you said, it's not something that like you can't tell from the outside, like who served and didn't serve, and
Exactly.
because a lot of it is, I mean, mostly it's, I mean, unless you sort of see like the physical effects of having served, which those, but for a lot of people, and this is the stuff I've heard you talk about. It's very much, there's a lot of mental there, and that's not something you can see just by looking at somebody,
Yes.
and there's a
And it,
lot going on.
well, it's kind of like when you have the placard in your car where you can, park in a handicap zone
Right.
or parking spot. You watch the person get out and you're like, wait, it's like,
Yeah.
but you don't know, So I'm just going to tell people out there, don't assume that you know what you know as far as veterans. Just ask the question and spark up a conversation with someone, and you might be surprised at the information you get.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've heard you say that so many times. It's like, yeah, just talk, ask the questions,
Hmm.
because that's truly the way to really find out and begin to help people. Don't make these assumptions. And as we were saying, it's not a one size fits all, and everybody goes through things differently, and they were affected by things differently based on experiences that were pretty unique to them.
You're correct about that. I also, people will confront you. There's different supermarkets that have, it says veteran parking,
Hmm.
and I will park there, but there are people out there who will challenge you. Now, to be honest with you, the ones who challenge you have never worn the uniform.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, how many, what the percentage is so high of people who are so self-righteous, and it's like, oh, so you served? Oh, well, no, I didn't. But
Yeah,
it's
my
like,
uncle, my grandfather,
right.
yeah. But
It's not
that's
it's not
actually
passed
happened to
down like
me.
that. It's
Yeah,
not passed down like that
I,
because, yeah,
I know.
I mean, both my grandparents served, and it doesn't
It
necessarily
doesn't
make me.
transfer.
No, it's not a transfer of power or birthright, because they served. Now I'm automatically, I get to carry that. No, 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 no. It does not work
Absolutely.
like that.
Oh man. So it's just unique where, you know, you're in a special category being a veteran, but then also being an Air Force brat, you're even in a more of a niche.
Yeah,
Those that were, military brats and then went into the military, that's even, less of a percent. So
right.
1% of the population actually goes into the military and wears the uniform. So that's kind of a sad statement, actually.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's an amazing stat. I never thought about it like that. Only 1%. Holy smokes.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, and because I feel like I have so many friends and family who have served. So I always, I never think about it in terms of kind of outside my bubble because so many I'm know so many people who have served. But yeah, 1%'s a shocking number actually.
It's not a lot, and veterans are very reluctant to talk about their service. So
Hmm.
if you come across someone who, you know, you pretty much suspect that they are a veteran because they're wearing something,
Yeah.
and, ask them, what branch of service, ask them what kind of places they went to. I used to hate the phrase, thank you for your service. It kind of felt kind of dismissive to
Right.
me. And, the other thing you can say is thank you for wearing the uniform because not many people do. I even say that to other veterans, even veterans on my podcast. I'm like, just thank you for wearing the uniform because we don't get thanked that way.
Right. Right. I mean, I think that's a really good point to make is I like that little distinction. I think that's a good way of rephrasing. So I actually never thought about it that way. I mean, you get wrapped up into saying that because you feel like, well, that's the thing to say, but maybe it's now learning, well, maybe that's not the right way to say it. It's better to say it that way.
Well, I don't get upset anymore. I just
Yeah.
realize that sometimes people don't know what to say. It's kind of like going to a funeral with a friend
Yeah.
and they're like, sorry for your loss because you don't know what else to say. And
Right.
once I realized that, I thought, okay, they don't know what else to say. So I get it. I still don't like it though.
Right. Yeah.
Just say it.
Yeah. Just say, just putting it out there. In case anybody's listening. Just want to get it on the record. So let's talk about now because you've got the podcast and I've listened to the podcast. I can't say I've listened to every single episode, but I've definitely listened to episodes. And it's really a cool podcast, and I like the way you have it set up, and the interviews you do with everybody are just, I like the flow because it is very conversational, and I like that because it's not so much like you must answer this set of questions and like it's just so much like I don't know, I like the free conversation format of it, and I gotta, I know, once again, having known you and spoken with you, I know where it comes from. But for those listening and watching this, why don't you talk a little bit about the Sisters in Service podcast and sort of what that mission is and who you like to feature on there.
Sure. The podcast, I don't know where the idea from podcast. My husband has been listening to podcasts forever. I can't even tell you that I listened to a podcast prior to doing a podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
But it came from serving and helping other women veterans. And the more I learned about how women veterans were struggling, how they're more apt to be homeless,
Right.
They're more apt to suffer from a military sexual trauma and PTSD. And I thought, something needs to be done about this. I just didn't know what. And I kept saying, okay, I want to do a podcast, but we're going about our lives, we're doing our thing, and then COVID hit.
Right.
And so this was back when we thought COVID was just going to be a few months.
Yeah, I think we all did. We're like, give it a couple weeks, it'll shake out, and
it'll blow over.
We'll be right back. Lickety split, and it's like, wow, here we are. Okay.
And someone had said, what can you say that you accomplished during COVID? And I thought, okay, now's the time to do my podcast. And things just fell into place. I mean, I did take a course on podcasting. I'm one of those people, as a veteran, I need system. I need a system. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I got the system and I started doing the podcast, and it just really, I already kind of knew how I wanted to go. I wanted to be conversational, and I wanted to feature, women veterans and everything they went through as far as while they were in the military, but also out of the military. And I also like to feature women entrepreneurs who are veterans and to let them know that their business is out there, so they get a chance to talk about their business, what they did, what, who they're looking for as far as their business is concerned. But now I've pretty much opened it up to more, organizations that help women veterans and just veterans in general. Mm-hmm. And it could be military spouses, those things that we go through. Because what I found interesting is that the male veterans had no idea what the female veterans were going through.
Right.
And I just thought that was bizarre. I was like, how do you not know this? But it's just something to get it out there, to get the conversation going, and just to help. I'm having such a good time doing it. I mean, such a good time. I'm having so much fun doing it. And I remember getting on Clubhouse and, going into one of the podcast rooms and they were like, "Oh, you got to monetize." And I was like, "What? What is that? What?" And I am dead set against, I was then and I am now, that I'm not charging my listeners, and I'm not
Right.
charging, my guests, because they're veterans. They've already worn the uniform. They've already paid, so to speak. So, I'll just find another way. If any
Right.
organization wants to throw some money my way for sisters and
Yeah.
service, shameless plug.
No,
No.
not shameless. Come on, throw some money That's way. Let's get someone to sponsor this show, for crying out loud. This is a service podcast. This is your opportunity. Like, come on,
Oh,
let's go.
man.
You can get in touch with Kat. Use all the links in everywhere, because there's links everywhere. There's links inside.
Get in before the rush.
Get in before the rush. You heard it here first, everybody. Sisters in Service podcast. Get on it. Sponsor a show. Let's go. Let's go.
Oh man, I love that.
But I love that you're saying that you're having a lot of fun with the podcast, because I think at the end of the day, like, even, I mean, listen, it's very mission driven. It has tons of purpose behind it, but that doesn't, just because it's mission driven and has purpose behind it, doesn't mean it can't be fun. And it should be fun, because it is still, it's a creative outlet. That's something that I think, and it's unique to you, and it's unique to, like, your expression and what you want to do. And I think that it should be fun. Like, it should be, like, exciting to do and create, and it's such a conduit for storytelling and to bring these stories to life. And you just said it, like, it's amazing, like, how, the experiences, like, people don't know, like, the male veterans don't know about the female experience, the female veteran. And it's like, it's just like, what, you feel like that? Or that's it. I had no idea. And it's like, how did you not know this? And that's what I think, this is where that is the fun part of that, is being able to bring and share these stories with an audience that may or may not know what was going on, or how somebody felt or an experience,
Oh, sure. And it's bringing, the female experience forward. If I couldn't have fun with this, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
But I did a whole series called Sisters in Service Down Under, because I belong to this Facebook page that's remarkably called Women Veterans Network, but it's in Australia. And I thought, wow, what is their service like?
Right.
And so I went on their Facebook page, told them I was doing a podcast, and I got 4 women who were willing to tell their story, all very different. And it was so amazing. Some things were different, but the experiences were very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was shocked at. I was like, wow, it's not as different as you think. The things that they go through in their service there is very, very similar to what we go through here.
I mean, you would think. I mean, but I think that's such a great idea, though, because, I mean, listen, we're all human beings. Most of us are human beings. But I mean, we feel, we go through these, and it's just, I find that interesting, because it is like they're different, that military's different set of systems and policies. But I think that's such a cool idea to, like, go in and talk to, people in other parts of the world and talk about service there. Because I think that's so cool, because, I mean, you don't always get that opportunity. I mean, we're so focused on, like, our own home and our own country, that it is that when you go and talk to somebody from other countries, you just get such a different perspective, but then you realize how similar we all are.
Oh yeah. So I'm trying to figure out what country I want to go to next. I'm just going to go around the world.
I think you should. You should totally tour the world. I think it's a great idea. I think that's such a cool idea. Yeah, if I were you, I would just, throw a dart.
I should,
get a map and throw a dart and be like, that's where I'm starting
that's where
next.
I'm going.
That's where I'm going. Because I think that would be, I truly think that's fascinating to hear those stories from around the world, and hear, the experiences that everybody have. And then, you realize how sort of small we are, even though we're a global community. And So I think that is cool. I like that idea.
Yeah, I did too. It was very organic.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I sat down and said, okay, I'm going to do this and this. It was just one of those ideas
Mm.
that, I thought, okay, either it's going to fly or it's not going to fly, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. So, but I think one of my best episodes actually came from a woman that I interviewed in Australia. So you just never know what people are going to listen to.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. So far, out of the interviews you've done, and you've told so many great stories, and been such a conduit to that. I was just going to ask you what has been your favorite to date.
Oh, I don't know if I can pick a favorite. They're all different in so many different
Yeah.
ways, and to talk about, certain things that happen, to women. I even had one who was a military spouse. Her husband was a Marine, and she was, beaten and battered as a military spouse,
Hmm.
but the Marines kind of just ignored it and didn't really do. Now, keep in mind this was back in the 70s, but she's
Hmm.
just now telling her story.
Right.
And she wrote this book and she said she was scared to put it out there, and I said, "Let me help you."
I love that. Let me help you. Let's go. Let's get that story
Let's
out.
do this,
Because it is there's a um I think that's so great, because I mean, for you to be able to help people to tell those stories, because there is a certain treasure in, that kind of trauma, because so many other people have stories like that they won't, for those reasons they haven't told them, and they just go left untold, and it's such a powerful thing when you hear those stories, because especially for people who have gone through it and lived through it, and to know that I, I'm not the only one to have gone through that, and like it can help them in their healing process. I think is just really, really important to do.
And it is. And when she was hesitant, and I said, "What are you hoping to accomplish with this book?"
Hmm.
And she said, "I want to help other women." I said, "Then let's do the podcast." And
Yeah.
she was willing. So it was, it wasn't my favorite because of the subject matter, but it was definitely one of those that keeps you listening,
It's
because of the
powerful.
stuff. It's
It's
very
it's
powerful.
powerful. Like, to be able to be able to help someone, give them the courage and the support to finally do something that they've been, holding in for a lot of years, and public, and do it in a public forum, like a podcast is, I think it's huge. It's very brave, and I think it's a great opportunity that you've been able to give people a platform like that to share. So
Well, I was
kudos
more
to
than
you. It's
willing.
powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is, but to get people's story, whenever I reach out to people that I hear on Clubhouse, yes.
Hey.
And it's their story that
Yeah.
I'm looking for, we talk so much about, oh, I have this guest on my show, and when people listen, and correct me if I'm wrong, but people listen partly for the guests, partly because of
Sure.
the subject matter, but a lot of times they're listening for the host too. You know, I've listened to other like past episodes that I put on, and so, I'll say something funny and I laugh in the same exact place that I did on it. And I thought, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think I I like that statement, because it's so true. Because I mean, I even think, like, when I buy records, and especially back in the '90s and stuff, like, you bought records a lot of times because of the record label, because you were like, hey, I know at this label, I've never heard this band before, but I know this label is known for putting out like really good music, and so I'm willing to take a chance on this because the label is known for, you know putting out
Right.
unique, interesting stuff or whatever. And I feel like it's sort of the same thing in that, because yeah, people do, they listen for, yeah, a certain guest will pique someone's interest, and maybe that's their entry point into, like, oh, I had this guest on and they got a really big following. But then to keep listening, like, beyond just the one guest, it does come down to the host and like what they bring and the questions they ask and the conversations they get into with their guest, because then that's what creates the style and tone of the show. you
Oh
know, and
yeah.
what you begin to expect from, you know, spending time with somebody on their podcast, like listening and spending that time together,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
and I think
It's more
that's
about
important.
it's about the flow. I think
Yeah,
for me it's not so much about the big fish. It's just more about the story and the flow, because if the flow is right, people are going to listen.
agreed. I totally agree. I listen to people a lot. I mean, I focus in on that on a lot of other podcasts that I listen to, and listening to that, you know, the flow of things. And like, I'm always trying to like get better with doing that on my own, because I think it's just something you get better at. It's the reps. You got to put the reps in, you got to do it. And then the more you do it and the more you talk, and I think it helps too when you have a guest that really can get in there with the flow and go back and forth with you. And it helps the energy of the show. But I listen to that stuff a lot, and I'm always trying to be like, oh my God, you know, they're so good. Like, I wish I could be that good. I want to get that good. And then every show I'm like trying to level my game up more, you know, but I think that's just part of the creative process.
Well, I think it's also because, you know, you're in this for the long haul. This isn't just a,
Yeah.
okay, I did a few episodes, I'm done. You know, it's too much work.
Right.
You know, the good people are the ones who make it look easy. You know, that's
Yeah,
why
I
other
know.
people want to get into it. They're like, oh, all you do is talk in a mic. I'm like, yeah, there's more to it than that.
A little bit more to it than that. Yeah, a little bit more to it than that for sure. It starts off like that.
It starts that way.
And then you're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Now I got all this stuff.
I
I
know.
just
But
all I wanted to do was like tell some stories, and now it's a whole thing.
but see, I'm one of those weird podcasters that I love the editing part. I love that part.
You know what? So having been in video editing for years and years and years, I mean, it's definitely something that it's where, you know, I mean, listen, this show, I do it live, and I like to keep the integrity of that. So there's very little editing I do
Mhm.
to when it gets to the audio version, other than cleaning up like the beginning and the end, you know, things like that. But I generally try to leave as much intact as possible, unless there's a serious technical flaw or, you know, whatever. But it's because I love that feel, you know, and I like that it feels like more like a radio broadcast than it does like this curated, edited interview. But I think it works for certain, you know, for certain. That's just my style, you know. But like, you know, yours is different, and you know, Kerry's is. Everybody's got their own way that they want to create. But I agree. I mean, editing's a part, because that's where things come together. You know, and things can change in the edit. All of a sudden, you may feel like, well, hey, this part feels better to move here at the
Here,
closer to the
yeah,
beginning, because it actually flows better now, like as an interview goes, and because the conversation went that way.
right.
And I think there's a cool power in that, to be able to, you know, reframe. It's still the same story. It's just you're just trying to catch that energy.
Well, to be honest, I don't edit all the ums and ahs. You know, like people drive themselves crazy with that. And here's my thing on that is that when you're having a conversation, you don't monitor your ums and ahs. Now, if they're excessive, maybe,
Yeah.
but you know, in a general conversation, yeah, I'm not, you know, like you said, if it's a technical flaw, yeah, I'll probably edit that out. But you know, for the most part, which I just said, did you hear that?
I've already in my head counted about 15 times I've said so including that one, now 16.
But I think it just makes for a better flow because it just makes the conversation go and it just sounds like you're part of the conversation. So that's what I love about that.
I feel the same way. I do feel the same way. And I think it's all in context too. I think it depends. What kind of show are you looking to create? You know, this is like, you know, this is a conversation. You know, but certain podcasts I listen to are very storytelling. They're scripted storytelling. And so that's a place where I feel like, you know, it's like listening to someone read a book or a short story, you know, or a short film or whatever, a script. And like those things would be taken out because it doesn't serve the story and the production that they're looking to do. And so that's a great example of where it's not supposed to be a natural thing. It's a little acted, or you're trying to set a mood or a tone. And so it's produced. You know,
Right.
whereas this is like, hey, this is a conversation between two people, you know, learning about each other and hearing your story, and that's more documentary style, more riffing than it is like this finely produced production.
Right. Mine's not finally produced. It's
Yes.
just, it's,
It's all right. It's produced. It's produced enough.
thank you. There you go. There
It's
you go.
just right. It's just right.
It's just right. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
I love so Pedro's checking a little bit earlier, just going back to what you were talking about the tour podcast tour, Corchado and beyond.
I love that.
That's great. That could be your intro. Sisters in Service and beyond.
And beyond.
You should have you talked to any astronauts or anybody like that yet on your show? Have you gotten into that at all? Anybody who's been in space yet?
No, I haven't. I was going to reach out to a woman veteran who was, I think she won a gold medal in the Olympics.
Oh,
in
cool.
boxing, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So I was going to reach out to her, but no one's ever said no to me before, if she does, I get it, but you just move on to the next person.
Yeah, that's it. And just because they say no this time doesn't mean they necessarily will say no next time. It just may be a timing thing, you know, and that's it's not always no doesn't always mean no. It just means
true.
Just not this second. Not 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 right now.
Not right now.
But later. Try again later. Remember the time you said no to me 6 months ago? How's now? That's awesome. So it seems like, I was going to ask you, like, what is the part about podcasting that you like? And it seems like editing seems to be your favorite out of podcast. Is that your favorite, or is there, it's just that you enjoy doing that, but the real part is X?
It's the connecting with the guests. That's what I love. Editing, I like it. Okay. I really do.
Right.
I like that part of it, but the connecting, the story, when you ask just the right question and it turns into something and you don't want to stop the guest from talking because it's so intriguing.
Right.
And that's the part that I love is just connecting and getting guests to open up and talk about whatever we're talking about.
Right.
So I think that's my favorite part.
Yeah, I think that's really cool too. I really like that part too. I mean, having been a filmmaker, video, being producing, directing, editing for years, I definitely feel like that part of the creative process is the thing that I like the most. I love when things just happen, because you asked a question, or something in the environment changed, or the actor decided to riff, and like just this thing happens and it sets you off of like, wow, I would have never anticipated that or planned this, but I'm so happy that happened.
That it happened. Yes.
And those are just the coolest moments, like completely unpredictable, completely unscripted. That's where it went. I think that stuff is so cool.
It is, especially, when it's unpredictable, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And, I had someone had reached out to me and they said, there's a part in there where you're, the guest is doing all the talking. And I was like, did you hear the story? I'm not just going to interject just because you haven't heard from me. I think, my job is to get the story and to, let the guest tell their story. And, I interject here and there, I have my little goofy laugh and, go from there.
I don't think it's a goofy laugh. I like it.
Thank you.
It's very endearing. It helps me. It's a good energy. I like it. It's a good, you know what it is? It's a really good icebreaker. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really great trait to have, because I think when people hear certain things like your laugh, or maybe I think it helps lower, whatever possible anxiety they may be having if they're nervous. Some people get really like, oh my God, I'm on a podcast, when they start to overthink it, and maybe because it's not something they do all the time. Like, we're constantly doing podcasts and going on lives and doing this and doing that, and we get used to it. But for some people, it may be the first time they've ever even done anything like this. So I think having like those great human traits and using them are really awesome. And I think they help people tremendously.
I think so too. It's usually after, you hit the end button and then you talk to the guests and they're like, and I say, oh, so how are you feeling now? They're like, that was so much fun. And I'm like, great. That's what I wanted, is you to have a good time doing it.
Right, exactly. And we were talking about that earlier. Like you were talking about how much fun you're having podcasting and creating the
Mhm.
podcast and doing all of it. And that's it. Like, you're getting into these really interesting conversations with people on very serious topics, but there is a fun at the end of the day of doing, because it is still a creative thing,
Yes.
just to bring it back around that. But yeah, it has to be, right? Because otherwise, then really, what I mean, you have a mission in mind, but there still has to be an element of like, because you could do this other ways. I mean, you could just write articles on these on people, or
Well,
there's
that's
other
no
ways of.
fun.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, this is more fun. It's like, let's flip the switch, let's go, let's just
Let's go.
talk, and let's
Let's
just
just
go.
do it.
Yeah, I like that. Because I'm not going to sit down there and type. I mean, that's I got these
Yeah.
like sausage fingers. I'm not doing it.
It's not as much fun. I mean, anybody can
No,
just bang out. I mean, not anybody, but
but
this is to see people's faces, to see their expressions and how they say things. I think is very unique.
yeah, I 100% agree. I think it is definitely as far as this medium goes and this way to create, I really enjoy it too. I mean, I spent time, I got into, I mean, I was in music, I did film and video, and I got into, like, I was a DJ in my college. My college, I was a DJ at my college. I was a DJ at another college where it was like a public radio station, and I absolutely loved it. I played records. I talked about music. I had people come up, and we hung out on the air, and we talked about punk rock and hardcore and all this stuff. But it was like, I absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed doing that for, like, I don't know, maybe did it for like 6 years, and it was just so much fun. And so when I started getting into podcasting and doing that, it just totally brought back all those feelings of, like, being on the air, and even though I'm not spinning records, but talking, I've got a show at Amanda where I just talk about music, so I'm kind of back to do it. But I love doing this because it just gives that feeling that I felt then, being a DJ on a college radio station.
Brought it all back. I
Yeah,
love
it
that.
does. It does. It brings that same feeling in there again. And I'm not out there playing music or anything like that anymore. So this is like a really nice outlet for me, um, to be creative in.
And it's working.
I'm having fun. I know you're having fun. Yeah. Well, this is awesome. I feel like you and I could just riff for another an hour here
Oh,
on
I know.
podcasting and everything that you're doing, and clubhousing, and and all those fun things. But I know we both have lives to get back to. So we'll you know what, we'll do a part 2 of this. We'll do a catch up later on, because I want to hear about the tour around the world. I want to hear about the as Pedro put it, the cat Corchado and beyond. I want to hear all about that, because next time you're like, oh my God, I talked to so and so, and over here, and I talked to an astronaut, and she was great. Like that's gonna be the next iteration.
It's coming, folks.
It's
It's
coming.
coming.
But for now, head over to Sisters in Service Podcast. You can catch it anywhere you listen to I mean, literally anywhere. All the links to everything Kat's doing are in the show notes and in the posts where you're watching this right now. You can get full access to everything that she's doing. And yeah, and for crying out loud, if you're looking to put sponsorship dollars in anything, put sponsorship dollars into this podcast, into what Kat's doing, because it's very important work with what she's doing and telling these stories and sharing these stories. And that it would be really good for you to get involved. You'd be helping Kat. You'd be helping a lot of other people out too. So just get in touch. Just make it happen.
Thank you, Chris.
Absolutely. And one more thing too before we split. You want to talk really quick about wovenwomanvets.org?
Absolutely. If you know any veterans who are just looking to get connected with other women veterans, we're on Facebook. You can go to wovenwomanvets.org. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can sign up for groups where you get to stay connected with other women. I've been a part of it since the beginning. I'm now a national consultant with Woven. And it's just an awesome way to stay connected. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I would love to tell you more.
Awesome. Well, there you go. You heard it. You heard it straight from Kat. So get involved, get over there, and also throw your support in there as well. So definitely get connected there, and you can always follow at Kat over on Instagram at Sisters in SVC. So head over there. Once again, all the links are in the show notes, so hit them up, use them really well. I want to thank my official show sponsor, Coffee with Kerry podcast, for sponsoring the show. Make sure you head over to any place you listen to podcasts and subscribe to podcasts, and definitely listen to Coffee with Kerry. You can hear myself. You can hear Kat was a guest on Coffee with Kerry. So definitely check out that episode, because they are a lot of fun to listen to, for sure. Any final words, Kat?
No, just thank you so much. This was a good time. So I'll be back for part 2 if you allow me to come back. And,
you're coming back. Yeah. You're coming back.
And for everyone who is out there listening, thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, well, no, I really appreciate you coming on. I had a great time with you today, and really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, and and just all the awesome information you have, and thanks for all that you're doing with the Sisters in Service podcast and all your contributions, because it really matters. It goes a long way. So thanks for all that, for sure. And Amanda Sharp checking in with great interview. Thumbs up from Amanda Sharp.
I love it.
Well, awesome, everybody. Well, thank you all so much for watching and listening to another episode of Rocket Live. We'll be back next Tuesday with another live episode, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you subscribe to the Rocket Growth Agency podcast. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can hear all the past episodes. You can also watch all the episodes I've done today over on my YouTube channel at Rocket Growth Agency. Once again, use all the links. They're everywhere. You have access to listen to all these episodes. This will be turned into an audio version as well, so then that way you'll be able to check it out when that gets released as well. Want to thank everybody for watching live. Thank you all for watching the replay, and thank you to everybody who listens and subscribes over on the audio version. We will see you next time. Remember, always be authentic, always be yourself, and always remember to rock it. Yeah. See you guys.